Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Christian Recorder Dialogues. We are here today with a very, very special guest. And to introduce that special guest, I give us the publisher of the AME Church Publishing House, the world's best landlord that anyone could ask for, Reverend Dr. Roderick D. Beelan. This is your first time on the Christian Recorder Dialogues, and we know it won't be your last. Brother Publisher, please introduce our special guest.
Thank you, Brother John Thomas III. It is my pleasure to present to you, sisters and brothers, the Reverend Dr. Margaret Elaine McCollins Flake, pastor of the Greater Allen African Methodist Episcopal Cathedral of New York. Reverend Elaine, as she is affectionately called by congregants and friends, has a powerful ministry that is dynamic, creative, innovative. Her ministry is huge but agile. She is a praying woman who labors in prayer so that she remains tuned into the heart of God while staying attuned to the times. As such, she preaches with great power and authority. The Reverend Elaine Flake is a meticulous planner. She is tenacious. She is a master of follow-through. The stellar women's ministry of the Greater Allen Cathedral of New York is a testament to her ability to bring a vision to fruition through careful attention to detail, follow through, and disciplined training. Before there was a cathedral, before she was ordained, ministry proceeded from her kitchen table. That was her conference room. And from there, ministries and ministers were birthed. Reverend Elaine and her predecessor and husband, the great Reverend Dr. Floyd Flake, have always had a heart for the young and the up and coming. Their great confidence in their own gifts allowed them to create opportunities for young, talented individuals to hone their gifts and exercise their abilities. Elaine Flake is a teacher. She takes time to talk with her proteges. She shares, she questions, she probes, she corrects, she applauds. I am a grateful beneficiary of her mentorship, and I am tremendously blessed by her friendship. Elaine Flake is a mother and a grandmother. You may not know this because of how she travels and does great exploits around the world, but she is an amazing cook. And I have won accolades by using her salmon croquette recipe. The atmosphere at the Greater Allen Cathedral of New York is singular. Excellence is the standard. Some years ago, we went to an event together and something was amiss in the program that we attended, and it clearly set her ill at ease. On the way back, we talked about it and we critiqued it, and she posed the question, Beelan, what's wrong with excellence? And that's the question that she puts to herself and the ministries that she leads all the time. And the answer is nothing, and excellence is the standard for the Reverend Dr. Margaret Elaine McCollins Flake and for the Greater Allen Cathedral of New York. Finally, the Reverend Elaine Flake is a jokester with a great sense of humor, But remember, Reverend Elaine is from Memphis. That means she don't play. This holy woman of God, sophisticated woman, member of the Links, chaplain of the AKAs, holder of degrees and a doctorate from the United Theological Seminary, is from Memphis. And if you want to find out what that means, try her. I present to you my beloved friend and mentor, the Reverend Dr. Margaret Elaine McCollins Flake, pastor of the Greater Allen Cathedral of New York.
Well, never in my life had that kind of introduction. And so I do want to thank the Reverend Roderick Dwayne Beelan for his kind and provocative words. And I'm just happy to be here. I'm glad to be here. Thank you so much, Beelan.
Bless you.
And I'll talk to you offline after this for sure.
My best friend in college, she's from Memphis, so I do know what that means. And I am excited that you are here with us. We are happy to have you with us. This is long overdue. And as a way of introducing you further in your own words, what did little Elaine want to do when she was little and she thought of growing up as an adult?
Well, you know, I grew up at a time when women of color did not do very much. If they weren't attorneys or doctors, they were teachers. And so I think that was my goal in life, to be, as my mother was, a teacher. And of course, I was a church girl. I loved church. I grew up in the St. Jude Missionary Baptist Church in Memphis, Tennessee, and just loved church, loved Sunday school, loved BTU. And as I grew older, I would leave BTU and go down to Pentecostal Temple and have more church. So that's just kind of who I was and what I did. And certainly my aspirations were to be a teacher.
Wonderful. I think many people can resonate with that, as education has been at the forefront of so much of your ministry. You went to undergrad at Fisk, which, you know, yay, Team HBCUs.
That's right.
And you started there and then moved on to get a master's in education.
Yeah, I went to Boston University from Fisk.
Okay, wonderful, wonderful. So you left the South and went up north to Boston University. And in Boston, you got a master's degree, but you also got a little bit more up there in Boston.
Yes, Lord. Well, you know what? I got two things. I got an image of church that I had never seen.
Okay.
I did grow up Baptist, but I gravitated to the St. Paul AME Church in Cambridge, Massachusetts. Then Reverend John Bryant and Reverend Cecilia Bryant were there. And I saw church and I saw ministry as I had never, ever seen it before. And so that was something, that experience certainly shaped me. It shaped my view of the kingdom. It certainly shaped my view of what ministry could be. And so that experience played a very, very prominent part in who I am today. And then, of course, after I'd been there about a year, this young fellow from, I think he was from Pennsylvania then, I was in church one Sunday and I saw him run down the aisle to join our church, and Bishop Bryant, Reverend Bryant, announced that he was the new director of the Martin Luther King Center coming from Lincoln University, and that he was an ordained elder in the African Methodist Episcopal Church, and he was coming to be a part of our church family. And that was the first time I laid eyes on Floyd Harold Flake, and he laid his eyes on me.
There you go. There you go.
Yes.
And the rest, as they say, is history.
Yeah, a long history.
I imagine coming from your church and your Baptist upbringing, going to St. Paul was a stark change in how you had seen women in ministry, which probably helped to color how you formed your own ministry going forward, right?
Yeah, well, you know, having grown up Baptist, I saw women speak.
Okay.
Because I did go down to Pentecostal Temple some summer nights after Baptist Training Union, I got another glimpse of women who had that kind of power and who would, you know, just take the microphone and go forth. But still, they were not ordained ministers. But when I got to St. Paul, and Reverend Renita Weems and I were talking about this not too long ago, we had Women's Day, and a Reverend Nurjan Govan,
okay,
I understand recently retired, preached a sermon, Who Shall Roll Away the Stone? I had never, ever seen a female preacher until I saw the Reverend Nurjan Govan. And that experience really did make an impact on me. I even told Bishop Brett, I think I cried for 2 or 3 days, and I don't know why, but I did. It just really moved me. It impacted my whole life. Just seeing this little, she was a tiny little thing, and she stood there and preached with such power that it really made an impression on me.
That's wonderful. So, so a bit of a spiritual awakening, if you will.
Absolutely.
Okay, wonderful.
I saw another dimension of ministry that I'd never seen before.
That's great. As you were, if we could jump back to the Floyd conversation, the Dr. Floyd conversation. So you met this young preacher, and you knew he was a preacher. And you all began your courtship. And I was recently watching an interview that you guys gave with CeCe Winans and her husband. And you were sharing about how he made some promises to you about what ministry might look like.
He promised me that he would never become a pastor. He promised me that he was going to shoot and aim at becoming a college president.
Okay.
HBCU college president. So I envisioned my life as, floating across the campus of Fisk University or floating across the campus of one of the southern HBCUs. And within 1 year, all of that did change.
Well, in some ways, he did make true on his promise. He ended up at Wilberforce.
I stroll across the campus at Wilberforce because I was here.
Right.
Right.
So with that in mind, you all you mentioned earlier too that you started you guys got married, and then shortly after that you went and began to pastor. So right. what did and at that point you were just Mrs. Flake.
Absolutely.
What the decision for you once you answered and realized and recognized the call that was on your life, how did that shift how you began to move as a couple? Certainly. But just for yourself more, how important was it for you as a new wife, as new in ministry and still trying to figure out what women in ministry looked like? And now here, God, you want me to do this whole thing called ministry. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, well, what happened was, when you come into the African Methodist Episcopal Church, you have some expected roles.
Sure.
One is to be the supervisor of the missionary department. And then, of course, the other one would be to kind of take charge of the women's department. And that is exactly kind of what I did. And because of some relationships that I had, I think I saw Reverend Cecilia Bryant do a women's conference. And of course, that birthed something in me. And I knew that was something that I would do when I, after I had been at Allen for a while. And so I started doing women's ministry, starting having women's conferences and workshops. And that kind of expanded, and it grew and it grew. And I started getting invitations to come and speak from pastors in the AME Church, in the local Baptist churches in this area. And so it just kind of evolved. I moved from being a speaker, Reverend Brian used to call me a jackleg, into moving toward ministry. And for my husband, of course, he was very pleased. He certainly encouraged that and told me to get to enroll in seminary and just do the things that I needed to do in order to follow the ministerial track. But that was much later, maybe 10 years after we got here. A number of years evolved and passed before I really moved into ministry.
Okay, wonderful, wonderful. And you talked about the women's ministry with regards to how it grew, and it has become a world-renowned women's ministry, doing more than just servicing the women of Greater Allen. There's shelters, there's the domestic violence program there. Can you speak a little bit more on the women's ministry that birthed out of Greater Allen?
Sure. Well, when I mentioned at one missionary meeting that I would love to be able to sponsor or, build a women's shelter for women who were victims of domestic violence. And it just so happens that one of the ladies at the meeting worked in the city, and she told me there was a RFP coming and that we should fill out the paperwork. And we did it very haphazardly, thinking that we could get our foot in the door. Maybe the next year or the next year they would give us the grant. That was in 1982, I think.
Okay.
1982, 83. We came to Allen in 76. So about 1982, 83, we submitted a proposal that my husband was not very pleased with. He thought it was not well done. But even with it not being well done, it was funded. And so 1983, we established the Allen Women's Resource Center, which is still a viable center today. And so we have been able to maintain that center. The church has had to support it on many occasions, but it's still going. And we thank God for that, because as you know, domestic violence certainly continues to be a problem in our community. And we are just happy that God has afforded us this opportunity to house women and children.
That's wonderful. I know that certainly the city and the borough appreciate that resource, as well as the larger church as a model for other projects.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned about grant writing. From there, I imagine your understanding of how to get things funded increased, and you learned a lot through that process.
Yeah, I did many grants and helped shape them and write them and rewrite them. As Dwayne said, at my kitchen table, my dining room table, to help get some of the programs that we were able to get. And at the time, we didn't have the staff that we needed. And so we just did, my being an English major definitely came in handy.
I was going to say, you are quite a writer. And so I imagine that your turn of phrase and the prowess with the pen was very helpful in that.
And I could type and he couldn't.
There you go. A great team. Great team. That's a great segue into how you have done ministry as a family. I know that it has appeared from the outside that ministry as a family has been important. And so now, can you talk a little bit about how you have envisioned ministry as a family, and not just you and your husband, but the entire family?
Well, as my children grew, they became interested in certain aspects of ministry. My older son at 3 or 4 certainly developed an affinity for drumming. And he has been the church drummer off and on, because he did stop when he went to college. Since he was a little boy, he was one of the drummers, and now he's the primary drummer. My oldest daughter started off in liturgical dance, but she stopped dancing and just became my bishop. She thinks she can tell me what to do, how to do it, and what works and what doesn't work. But and so my youngest daughter is a dancer, and she now heads the dance ministry. It is amazing that she was only 2 or 3 when we started the dance ministry, and she grew up in it. She went away to school, came back, and became a part of it. And now she, along with 2 other young women, head the Allen Liturgical Dance Ministry. And of course, my younger son is now over at the housing development office. He went to FAMU and got a degree in business. And so now he is helping to run that aspect of the church. I never, ever forced ministry on them. I kind of let them choose who they were and what they wanted to do. And I think that has worked for me. They are a very important part of who we have become, especially my youngest daughter with the dance ministry. And of course, our music ministry is headed by my son-in-law. And so it has really become a family affair. And I really saw it intensify when we had to go out for COVID. And I just saw them just because I think I was paralyzed with fear and apprehension. Lord, what's going to happen? But they helped me reorient. They helped me to envision what we would do and how we would do it. And I would have to say that my family has been such a blessing to our ministry as they have been a blessing to our lives.
That's wonderful. That's certainly something that's a model that we have adapted here at DuPage for sure. It's one of those. It's a blessing, and then it's a bigger blessing at sometimes, and it can be a challenge. But I think it certainly is a calling. But as you move into this season now, and with just you at the helm, and I know with Dr. Flake certainly being your husband, he's never far from it. But officially in title, how do you envision things going forward with you just being the sole leader at the church? I know you have your support staff, but it's a little different.
Well, it's different, but it's not. I'm just doing what I've done for a while, because when Floyd was in Congress, we had Dwayne, but Dwayne and I were certainly collaborators in ministry. And then when Reverend Roger Dwayne Beelan left, we just kind of moved into, I just kind of moved into what he was doing in terms of title. And for me, I don't have that much more time left. I'm just kind of holding it down until I age out. And so I'm just, right now our vision is for getting through COVID. Our vision is to get people back in the sanctuary and back to another level of ministry. I won't say back to normalcy because we don't know what normal is anymore, but we know that there are some steps that we're going to have to take, and there is a move back into this. And I'm certainly happy to lead that. And of course, we are looking, we're still trying to do our community work. Should grants and opportunities become available, we are going to do what we've always done, and that is to serve our community as well as our congregation. So I am excited, and yet I do understand that the time that we are in is going to impose some limitations, but we're going to do what we can do and what we must do as it relates to outreach ministry. And as you know, we have to read the times. We have to know what the times are, and then be ready to respond.
Yeah, I think that's been one of the largest learnings in this season is learning how to pivot and learning what the pivot is. And then if it doesn't work, to then be able to pivot again and keep figuring it out.
Can I tell you, there are no real books that have helped us with this.
Right, exactly.
Territory for real. But I will say this. I had my leaders read Canoeing the Mountain.
Okay.
Just before the pandemic in January. So we had talked about doing ministry out of the box and other kinds and being ready to adapt and be creative, but we had no idea that it would become this experience that we've had to go through.
You were being prepared for that which you didn't even know.
That's right. The Holy Ghost led us to that book.
That's outstanding. That's outstanding. Reverend Beelan mentioned that you like to mentor other women, certainly in ministry. And we have watched over the years, you and your husband mentor other couples in ministry. How important has mentoring and being an example and pouring back into the lives of up and coming preachers, how important has that been to you and your personal calling?
Well, the thing that I remember most is when we came to Allen, I had absolutely no idea of what to do, how to do it. And I just remember having access to Reverend Cecilia Bryant was life-changing and life-saving for me. It helped me to navigate those waters, especially in those early years. And so I remember how she blessed and how she helped me and how she you know, guided me through the process of being a first lady. And then, of course, I had other friends who were going through, who were going through. Excuse me. Oh Jesus. I had other friends who were new in ministry, and so the for me, knowing what I needed helped me to do what needed to be done in the lives of others. And so I am very intentional about helping others as I was helped.
That's wonderful. So many times I have found that either you are some people hold on to the information for dear life, kind of a hoarding of information, but it's always best to share, because the information is not we're not the proprietors of it, and we're all better. We all benefit from the sharing of the information.
No, and you have to be willing to share. You have to be willing and not intimidated and not selfish. You can only have one agenda in my book, and that's the kingdom agenda. And if you have a kingdom agenda, then you're going to do whatever you can to help expand the kingdom.
That's wonderful. What would you say if you looked back when the story is finally written and you close the chapter on your life in formal ministry, as you look forward, as a Sankofa type of moment, what are some of the things that you're most proud of in your ministry, if you reflect a little bit?
Well, there are a number of things. I would have to say the Allen Women's Resource Center. I would have to say the years that we had the Allen Christian School, almost 29 years. We were able to help shape the educational journey of hundreds, if not thousands, of children. And I'm very proud of that. Proud of the women's ministry. It has grown, and it certainly has been a blessing to the lives of other women. And so I certainly would, those would be three things: the Allen Women's Resource Center, the Allen Christian School, and of course, the Allen Women's Ministry. Missionary department, we've worked hard to develop a very strong missionary department. And of course, I'm just proud of the church that we have become. Being here for 45 years soon has, most people say that's too long to stay, but it has gone by fast in so many ways. And I'm grateful that we were afforded this opportunity to serve this church. I'm grateful that we always prayed that we would be able to raise our children in one space. And so we were able to do that. And so, I'm just delighted that God has afforded us this opportunity to do ministry. And we, when we move on, when we retire, I'll be fine. I don't think I'm gonna grieve or anything. I think I'll just know that we gave it the best we could. And once you've done the best that you can, that I have no regret. Well, I really don't have any regrets. There have been some seasons that I've regretted, that having to go through, but basically, I think God has been so good to us, and we give God all the praise. We really do.
Yeah, and I imagine those seasons help sharpen you for the seasons that even came later after that. So there's always a benefit to some of the struggle.
Yeah.
What are some things that you have that you still want to do in ministry? Are there some books that you have yet to write? Are there conferences that you have yet to plan?
I am not interested in writing another book. No.
Okay.
I would, as far as a women's conference is, conferences, I'm always thinking, and I'm certainly open to doing something new and creative, or maybe even reimagining the women's conference that we have done. I've done those conferences for almost 40 years. So,
sure.
we just don't know how this season is going to evolve. So I've not pinpointed anything that I want to do in the next year, except move, the congregation back to some sense of corporate worship again. Well, I'm sure it's going to be a hybrid for my tenure here. I'm sure it's going to be hybrid experiences, but that is what we're going to do our best to master.
Are you finding that the congregation is ready to come back in the building, or are they still a little apprehensive?
Well, let me just say this. We opened up registration today for a limited number, and in 15 minutes, it was gone.
Okay.
So I think that there are some who are more than ready to come back. I think others are hesitant. Sure. And so that's why that hybrid model.
Mentioned earlier, it's not going to be as it was before. And even when we come back physically in the building, it's a new day.
Definitely. Mm-hmm. It's a new day. And one of the good things that has happened, our people have become more tech savvy than they were.
Hallelujah.
I did a conference last week and said, I have evolved into a producer and listening to music and saying, no, this is not right. That's not right. Get this shot. So, I mean, we're all like, hey, we are becoming someone we never intended to become. But the times have demanded that we make some adjustments.
Right. And if we are serving the present age, this is what the calling is looking like.
This is it.
This is it. That's wonderful. I want to ask you a little bit about if you were not a pastor by vocation. I know you trained to be an educator, and that might have sounded like a good idea in the beginning. Do you, on this side of your calling and season in your life, would you still be a teacher?
I doubt it.
Okay.
Because I did teach for a few years. So, I went to Boston in 70 and we married in 75. I went to Boston in 70, 71. We married in 75. We came to Allen in 76. So I taught for about 4 or 5 years in Newton, Massachusetts. And I realized that was really not my calling. And so now, if married and I had not come here, I don't know what I would be doing now. I can't even imagine, but I don't think it would be teaching.
Okay. Yeah, I was a teacher for a brief stint too, and it was an exciting adventure. And like you, I realized that there might be some other opportunities for me to exercise my gifts.
Right, exactly.
There you go.
School, maybe, I don't know. But I just don't know.
So let me ask you a little bit about your personal memberships. I know that you are a member of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, as well as the Links.
Yeah.
And how important, well, I'll ask you this because this is something that I have always struggled with. While I'm not an AKA and I am a member of one of the other D9.
Yeah.
I will say this, it has been a challenge many times to juggle between the social and the church, between the calling of the community socially, from our civic organizations, and then also the religious need and demand. I'll say it that way. How have you been able to balance those, or have you been able to balance them?
Well, yes and no. Now, my mother, of course, was in the sorority, and she did other social things, and so I just felt that my membership in other women's organizations was vital for me as a woman.
Sure.
And I liked being able to go in and mingle with women who were not necessarily members of our church. And I liked to see the community service we do, because it motivates me all the more to let this church be, a larger, hopefully, a larger entity in the community, seeing what the Links do, seeing what the AKs do, seeing what National Council of Negro Women and how committed they are to community, knowing that we are the church of the true and living God, and our commitment should be just as great, if not greater, then being a part of these organizations has really helped me. Now, the other part of that, it's being a part of those organizations. I kind of started out saying, well, I can be myself there. I'm not Reverend. I'm not Floyd's wife. I'm just Elaine. But of course, I ended up, being the national chaplain of the Links and serving with AKAs on some national level, in terms of the planning worship services and other opportunities. So that Reverend title has followed me, but it's still a good experience for me. It's been a good experience.
Yeah, that's definitely one of those things. I tried to hide out in the sorority, and then they're like, "Oh, well, you're a Reverend, Morgan. You can do this, you can do that." And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm just trying to be soror. That's all."
Exactly.
That didn't last too long.
No. And maybe that's just, it might be a good thing, because, we were always told that we should have our influence felt wherever we go.
Indeed.
And so, you just kind of do the best you can.
Yeah. I want to jump back just a little bit to 2000.
Okay.
The summer of 2000.
Mm-hmm.
And so many AMEs were gathered in a city in the Midwest.
Cincinnati, if I remember correctly.
There you go. And a shift happened.
Mm-hmm.
Can you talk about how you felt then? And just kind of think about what that means now. And for those of you who aren't with us, but that was the year that Bishop Vashti Murphy McKenzie was elected the first woman bishop in the AME Church. In the over 200-year history of our denomination, we did a new thing. Hallelujah.
Mm-hmm.
Can you reflect on that and just tell us how you were feeling and what that meant to you personally?
Well, okay, so it was 2000, and I remembered that I think it was 1984, Bishop Leontine Kelly was made bishop in the United Methodist Church, and then a few years later, Barbara Harris was made a bishop in the Episcopal Church. And so I just kind of felt that it was time. And I certainly felt that Bishop Vashti had done the work. I had been to her church, and I had seen not only her Sunday morning worship services, but I knew of the work that she had done. And I just felt that that had she been a man, there would be no question. And so I went to the General Conference in 2000 with the intention. There were three of my great friends, Bishop Richard Norris, Reverend Richard Norris at the time, Reverend Gregory Ingram, and of course, Reverend Vashti McKenzie. Those were the three that I had known through the years. And I was just hopeful that we could do everything that we could to help the three of them become a part of the episcopacy of our denomination. And of course, we did. We worked it, and thank God it did happen. I was very, very happy for Bishop Vashti. And then a few years later, we brought in Sarah Davis and Bishop Guidry. And so I was elated about that. But I just felt that the AME Church, being the progressive church that it has been, as it relates to women in ministry, it was time. It was just time.
It certainly felt that way. And it still feels that way, that there's some other changes that are afoot as we continue, as we mentioned earlier, to serve the needs of the community now.
Mm-hmm.
What are some things that, if you were to reflect on everything that has happened in ministry, what are some things that you still think our Zion has yet to do? What are some things you have I would say in smaller circles, been very candid about how you feel about the church. And for those of us who have a similar inkling, we have appreciated your candidness. Because I think it's pastors and leaders like yourself that help to move the needle a little faster and help to stress the sense of urgency for things to change and to shift. What are some things that you would like to see us do as a denomination in the near future?
Well, I think that our denomination has to, politics has been such a part of and it's not just African Methodism, it's denominations across the board. But the truth of the matter is, I think we have to be more kingdom-minded than we are political. I think we have to think of the greater good and not just personal agendas. I think we have to be a church that understands what it really, really means to build and to impact the world, to impact the kingdoms. And I think our pastors have to understand the call that's on all of our lives, not to just pastor a local church, but to go into the community and make a difference. Many times, I think personal ambitions get in the way of doing great ministry and, effective ministry. So I would just hope that a new vision for ministry would evolve in the hearts of each member of our church, so that it's not about moving to the next place, but really about becoming a strong presence wherever I am. And if it means I have to put my agenda on the back burner, that's what I'm willing to do, so that I can do ministry effectively. I know that Floyd ended up running for Congress, but I can honestly say that was never his agenda. It just happened. And so rather than being the kind of people, and I know we're told to plan, but the reality is you never know what God has in store for you. And if you just go into the place that God puts you and go into the place that God plants you and just do ministry with excellence and with a kind of tenacity and steadfastness, we don't know what will unfold. We don't know how God will take us. But if you go, if you go to a place and say, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, I want to be this, I want to be a bishop, I want to be a politician, I want to run for mayor or whatever, you might limit God, because you never know where God's going to take you. Floyd said he wanted to be a college president, but he ended up doing many more things, and he did eventually become one. I will say that. But I think it's kind of a fluidity in as it relates to the will of God and the power of God and your dreams and your visions, because God will do exceedingly abundantly more than you could ask or think, but you just have to be in there doing the work for the kingdom, not so much for the denomination, but for the kingdom. And then as you are kingdom minded, you will see the denomination become stronger.
Amen. Amen. We're getting a lot of people to agree with those sentiments. That's wonderful. That certainly is wonderful. As we wrap up, are there some parting words of wisdom that you would like to share with us, or some things that you want to make sure that before the legacy of Elaine Flake the story has been told? What are some things that you really hope that they will remember about you? I recently heard you preach about wordscapes, and I am a wordscape fan. I am tethered to my phone and my games. I'm making moves, but I'm playing games. You can believe that.
It's really become an issue in my life. But you know what? I just would want people to know that you can do what you do and still not lose your soul, take care of yourself, be who you are. Don't let pressure from without, and certainly even pressure from within, be so dominant in your life that you miss having fun and miss relaxing, and you know, do for yourself what needs to be done so that you don't become angry and bitter and or uptight. God is too good for us to be otherwise, I feel. So I would say take care of yourselves. Just learn how to have fun. As Reverend Beelan said, I have fun, and I enjoy life. I enjoy being here at the church, but I also enjoy being home. I enjoy being with friends. I enjoy traveling. I used to enjoy shopping, but that demon has been lifted from me because of COVID, I think. But, I just want to be the best that I can be. And I do understand that there is life beyond this church. There is life beyond even the ministry. Having been here 40 plus years, I'm just looking forward to what God will do. I'm not trying to start anything, no new ministries. I just want to chill. I want to relax, and I want to be able to reflect on all that God has done. And I'm looking forward to it.
Amen. Amen. Well, we certainly thank you for taking the time, Reverend Elaine. We thank you for sharing candidly and from your own experience and your own wisdom. And we appreciate the jewel that you are to our denomination, the example of excellence. I personally appreciate that. I remember back in, I want to say it was 2005 or 2006, I was discerning a call. I was trying to figure out what was next. And I joined, Greater Allen online, because you were one of the early ministries that was online regularly. And I appreciated that. My best friend and I, we came together around Greater Allen. And while we went to our respective churches, we came to Bible study. We knew all the songs at Greater Allen. We were affiliate members. And it was a model of excellence. And so we greatly appreciate that, what you have done for all of Christendom, and how you have helped to provide a model of excellence in ministry. So thank you so much.
Well, thank you for this opportunity. And I just look forward to the next few years.
We are excited. We thank you all for joining us for the Christian Recorder Dialogues. I am Reverend Morgan Dixon, Church Administrator at DuPage AME Church in the fabulous 4th Episcopal District. We thank you for dropping in the comments where you are worshiping with us, if you will, and joining us from. We ask that you would support the Christian Recorder by buying a subscription, $36 a year, and you can visit thechristianrecorder.com for more information about that. It comes out in print and also a digital version, which is emailed to you. You can support the AME Church Publishing House for your church, school, and worship needs. You can visit www.amecpublishing.com, and there's also other worship resources at imame.org. You can join the AME Church Publishing House today at 6:30 p.m. Eastern, 5:30 Central for their summer church school liberating faith studies curriculum training with Dr. Lionel Merritt. The link is available on the AME Church Publishing House Facebook page. There is a pre-registration for that, and that's primarily for superintendents and teachers. Our next TCR Dialogue is going to be tomorrow. It's a spicy one, and we're excited about the church doing a new thing with Mr. Alfonso David of the Human Rights Campaign, and a panel of AME guests moderated by Dr. Nita Mosby Tyler, who will lead the denomination in the LGBTQ acceptance in the AME Church conversation. This is one to not miss. We also invite you to share with our General Officer and Judicial Council candidate forums this Sunday afternoon. You'll see more information about that. It's coming out. It's all over the place. You can't miss it. And today's TCR Dialogue is sponsored by Chisholm for Bishop. Chisholm for Bishop 2021. We also invite you to check out Christianity in Context, which I believe we have a video coming up.
am about to take you on a journey, and the context is Black.
The Black church, it's absolutely the first institution on U.S. soil that Black people actually had control over.
I think we have to keep being the church. I think we have to start being the church.
And so why not I just go to the source and say, God, how is it that you would like me to respond?
Because the Christian who isn't praying is just guessing.
It's a question of whether I want to be a good witness or a poor witness, but I'm going to be a witness whether I like it or not.
But I feel like praying right now.
They believed heartily around the turn of the century, around the 1900s, that Black people would disappear.
That didn't happen.
That didn't
The Spirit of God is igniting the hearts of human beings to fight and to resist evil.
We know the government is not coming to save us. It has never come to save us.
But one thing you cannot pretend.
They have motives, and we need to question what their motives are and how they might work for and or against us.
Hold up now, preacher. Hold up.
Black people are really going through it.
If we don't start to make those more inclusive places of women, of LGBTQ folk, then they're going to die off and continue to be ineffective.
I do believe that we are human. I don't argue with people who have decided that I'm not.
You are Alpha and Omega. We worship you, our Lord.
Ooh, this is the second. It's hitting me. Wow. You're watching a live download happen right now.
The YouTube page of the publishing house. We want to thank Reverend Elaine Flake for joining us again. We thank you so much for sharing with us, and we look forward to seeing you all later here at the TCR Dialogues. Have a great day.
Have a great day.